Hey, welcome to Filler. I'm Joe.
And I'm Steve, and give me a second while I crack open this seltzer can that is not a Spindrift. That's the stuff.
What is it?
Not Spindrift, because I've learned from my mistakes. I am not going to keep saying the name of a brand that's not going to sponsor us. And I'm getting really angry at them, honestly, now. So the new next step, logically, is to boycott them until they sponsor us. So I will not be drinking Spindrift anymore until they sponsor Filler. And to anyone who thinks like, oh, you're just one person, I am a solid 27% of their revenue. So maybe they'll get the picture pretty soon.
Can I ask what brand of seltzer you are drinking?
No, see, that's the thing, because I'm not going to repeat this cycle with another. But I will say that this one, it rhymes with Waterloo. So take that as you will.
All right. Because at first I was going to say that you're just drinking Spindrift and saying you're not drinking Spindrift, but
that's the beauty of the podcast. It's all magic and inference. So I could be lying, but damn it, I ran out of yes ands. Let's move on.
Well, I'm drinking vintage seltzer. A seltzer as old as the people we're talking about in this episode. Drink vintage.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Okay. So, this episode we are talking about Sinners from Ryan Coogler.
Woo! This movie's so good, and I want to see it a second time already, like you did.
Yeah. So I did want to get out of the way that I don't. Would you say this is a filler episode for me or a filler episode for you? Because I suggested doing the episode, but I don't know if you love it as much as I love it.
That's a good question. I'd say it's kind of both of us, but more you led.
Okay.
It's as if we were talking about Tunnel of Love, Nebraska, and Enema of the State, and One More Time, all in one.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Sounds good. I wanted to see where we fell on it, because when you and I were texting about it, I wasn't sure if you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, I think I misled you a little bit, because I went into it knowing that you wanted to talk about it on the podcast, and I was like, I think I'm too dumb to be able to speak about it intelligently, because there's so much in this movie that I don't think I got it all. And I am a white guy, so some of it's just going to go over my head, but I also have been interested in stories like this for a long time, so I was very open to the messaging and whatever it was trying to say. And after some think pieces and discussing it with Allison, who I saw it with, and whatnot, I'm like, okay, this does make a lot of sense, and it's just a fun movie to peel the layers back of.
Right. That's where I was coming from with it as well. And I guess I'd been colored by a video from Ryan Coogler after watching it the first time, where he said something along the lines of wanting to make a movie that is not necessarily a movie about race. And it was touching up on some of those feelings that Jordan Peele gives when he talks about Us, where it's more of a class movie, but inherently talking about class, there are racial issues. And it seems like Jordan Peele did not want to accept that when he was really pushing the themes he was pushing in Us. Whereas Ryan Coogler is like, I have these ideas that we'll get into when we get into our spoiler section about it. But I have these ideas that I'm trying to communicate, and race is a part of them, but it's not just race.
Right.
And so I like that he gave that distinction kind of upfront and very clearly, because it's like, it made me feel like Jordan Peele, for us, didn't really know what his own movie was about, because I was sitting there watching it several times, and I was like, no, this is like some race commentary that you're making here, like very clearly race commentary. But I didn't think he wanted to be labeled as the black director who makes horror movies about people of color after doing Get Out. And now Ryan Coogler, I'm glad he's just like, yeah, there's race stuff, especially like based on the time period and based on the characters and whatnot and the setting. But it's not. It's more than that, which is really why I wanted to get into it, because I think talking with family members, talking with people I've seen it with, some multiple times, others just the first time. We have those conversations about race that are like kind of, I think, obvious when you see the movie and interesting. But like we've been there, we've done that, but we kind of have to like hit that. We have to hammer that nail while we're there, sort of thing. And then there's other things that it's like, oh, well, what are they going for? Which is the stuff where I was like, oh, he's trying to go into some new territory. We'll start with a quicker spoiler free section where we talk a little bit about it, and then we'll do like a definitive switch into spoiler territory because it is still brand new to talk about it.
Yeah, and we do want to emphasize, like, if you have not seen this movie, you need to. It is one of those movies that you are going to love in the theater. It is a special one to share with an audience, and it's in different formats. There's IMAX, and you saw it in a 70 millimeter screening. Just see it any way you can on a big screen.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing that got me into it. Not because I didn't want to see it originally. I was very hyped when I heard that Ryan Coogler was making a vampire movie where Michael B. Jordan plays twins. Like hearing that years ago, whenever it was announced, I was immediately was like, yeah, I'm in. I don't need a trailer. Like I'll go watch it because all those things are cool to me, right? But then I think I might have even had avoided the trailers when they came out because I was like, I'm fine. I'm gonna go see this. And then the reviews started pouring in, and they were like, no, this movie is important. This is generational. And that's when I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting beyond just being like a great movie that everyone kind of knew it would be.
And it's been very interesting and kind of infuriating to see that there's been all this reporting on the movie that's very qualifying and like kind of trying to diminish the success of this movie because it's an original IP by a black director that is doing crazy good box office numbers. But for some reason, all the Variety and Hollywood Reporter headlines are always like saying like, has a really strong weekend, but could peter out, and like every weekend that it continues to perform well or goes up against Thunderbolts and doesn't like slow its returns as quickly as expected up against a new Marvel movie, there's always some condescending caveat, and it's so annoying. So it's all the more reason, go see it, vote with your dollar, and go see this movie and support it, especially because the rights are going to return to Ryan Coogler after 25 years. So this is a very cool creator-led, like artist-led movie that deserves support.
I think this is one of the coolest things that those rights are coming back to him, that he got that in his contract for the movie. This is a Warner Brothers distributed, right? Yeah, right. So to put this in like comic book terms, when you work for DC or Marvel, you're doing essentially freelance work. Like you don't own Spider-Man. You don't own a bit of Superman, right? You're just there, you're cashing in, you're getting a good paycheck, but that your name goes on the cover and then it becomes in the ether of DC and Marvel. When you do creator-owned work, that's where you really get your fans and you really start to see what these creators like to do. It is so cool that Ryan Coogler is kind of able to do both with this movie, where he's getting that big money up front, and then at the same time, he kind of just got like a carte blanche to do his thing because Warner Brothers trusted him after Creed, after Fruitvale Station, after both Black Panthers. And yeah, man, just make a good movie. And seeing that both happen in the theaters and also then learning about him getting those rights back gave me such Christopher Nolan vibes.
Yeah.
Which, as a Christopher Nolan fanboy, but one who did not really grow up with him or not be, maybe not be a mature film lover the way I am now, I really appreciate that it's happening with a director I love.
Yeah.
Because I like Christopher Nolan when he was doing like Dark Knight, the Dark Knight trilogy, when he did Inception, when he did all those things, like I was into it, but I was like, he didn't feel like my director, or I didn't have that personal attachment to him because I was like still figuring out myself as a movie watcher. Now Ryan Coogler comes out and it's like, no, this is his voice, and it's very, very clearly his voice. The way he's moving the camera, you know what he's doing. You know what the Coogler tricks are, and you're like, yeah, I'm here for it. You're throwing popcorn at the screen. I'm happy it's happening.
This really is the new arc of the household name film director in the 21st century. To compare Coogler to Nolan, like start out with smaller indie thing that gets very, very good critical reviews and work with an actor that is kind of a good go-to person for you. So with Nolan, you know, he had Memento, or he had Following, the Memento, and then he starts to get bigger things from there. With Coogler, it's Fruitvale Station. Then you get into like a little bigger territory. You know, Nolan gets Insomnia and movies like that, where it's an adaptation of something. And Coogler gets Creed, which is an adaptation of the Rocky series, but more of like a half sequel because
Yeah.
it's like it's a Rocky story, that universe, but like set way later. Then you get the big superhero movie,
Yep.
Dark Knight trilogy, Black Panther duology. And now, after doing something that big for a big franchise and it goes over really well, you kind of get to do what you want. So Nolan comes up with Inception and Interstellar, and he's like, I'm going to do Oppenheimer. Like, he can just do whatever he wants, and he knows his name has draw. And thank God Ryan Coogler is getting there now and getting people to go see a vampire period piece in the middle of May.
Yeah.
Like, this is not horror season. It's not, you know, early January, like, get the schlock out, and it's not around Halloween. This is a late spring, early summer movie about vampires. And it's still doing great.
Yes, yeah. I was happy to see that too. I was really surprised that they were releasing a horror movie this early in the year. That's not like a BS throwaway slasher or like a companion kind of horror movie or like The Monkey, things like that, where they're not really there to scare. And then having now seen it, it's not really there to scare. It's just a movie, you know?
That's part of why I like it, because I am not a horror person. I don't like the feeling of being scared. This tested me a little bit because there's jump scares at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that. Was very annoyed. But then, no, it was like the right level of like gore and dread that I like. And it was just so entertaining and otherwise. And all my favorite movies, most of them at least, have like some kind of musical element to it. And that really came through in this. So combining like my favorite genre with my least, very interesting to make something pretty new.
Yeah. Okay, I guess because we're starting to like veer into it now, and some of what I have to say about other things is going to enter spoiler areas. So let's call this is the spot where from here on out, pause it, go run to your movie theater, go watch Sinners, come back, press play. We're talking spoilers now. You said how you were annoyed or you were tested by those jump scares at the beginning. I really love that he put the jump scares, he front loaded them.
Yeah.
Because he's getting it out of the way. This is a quote unquote horror movie because there's vampires in it. And it's about black people in the South in the, 1920s, 1930s?
30s, I think. Like
1930s. So between those two things, it's kind of got those horror undertones right off the bat. So I appreciate Coogler as a director because he kind of knows the genre trappings that he's in, and he's just there at the front of the movie, and he's got his checklist, and he checks them off so that he can get to the story that he wants to tell. So right away in those first 10 minutes, we get the jump scares. Great. It's a horror movie. We know it is. Right away in those first 10 minutes when smokestack come and they're starting to buy what's going to be the Juke from who turns out to be the KKK leader, the fat, chubby white man, we're getting the racism out of the way. Like they're saying, like, remember, this is the South. They are racist people down here. Remember, this is a horror movie because there's vampires in it. We're going to scare you so that we can get to the real good stuff.
And when that guy says they ain't no Klan no more around here or whatever, it's like you don't believe him for a second.
No one believed him. Even Smoke. I don't know which one it was. I think it was Stack. I'm pretty sure Stack in the movie like made a face and he's like, "Oh, like come on!" Like he almost looks at the character because that's part of the joke. That of course there is.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about Coogler's connection to Christopher Nolan, who even got a thank you in the movie, which I thought was cool. Something else that stood out to me was how Coogler does that genre mashing, like what you were talking about, mixing the music in with the horror, mixing the social commentary and the racial commentary in with the horror and the music.
Mm-hmm.
This gave a lot of Stephen King to me.
Mm-hmm. Any stories in particular?
Probably It is like the major one that I can think of off the bat. Stephen King is very, very good with giving period pieces or with writing period pieces, especially when he has personal nostalgia for that time period. But then he also mixes in social commentary to kind of be like, yes, there are monsters, but also men are monsters because of the bigotry that they possess. That's a lot of it, and the little interstitials in it. The only thing is that with King, he really can't write black characters. He very often, and I think of The Shining with this mostly, with Dick Halloran in it. He plays like the magical Negro character in it, and it's very, very frustrating because you love Dick Halloran right away. The whole book, he's supporting Danny through it in The Shining, but he's also a very, very one-dimensional character, and King puts on like the jibe talk on his voice instead of just letting, you know what I mean? So doing that to characters, you can see that King really does want to talk about serious social issues and mix that in with the cool monster or the scary villain or vampires or whatever it might be. But he does not have the talent to write outside his purview at all, if for a very long while. I haven't read everything he's done, but everything I've read of his, he usually misses the mark.
So I have a question about this, actually. So sorry to cut you off, but
No.
I'm very curious because you brought this up. Now, we've established, I have a feeling you were going to say the Coogler can write like all different kinds of voices, because in this movie we have Chinese characters and Native American and whatnot, and a mixed race white person who can pass white but connects to the black family and friends that she's had. But I'm curious what you think about the Native American vampire hunters, because I had that same thought of like magical Negro thing, but with natives, because that's another kind of trope of like, oh, they're Native Americans, so they know things we don't, you know. I've heard concern about that kind of trope before. Did that stand out to you in a negative way, or was it passing enough to be like, this makes sense?
This is the first time that I'm hearing about it, that you're bringing it up. It didn't stand out to me at all. It stood out to me more so as Remick, the vampire, was already involved with the Native Americans, which was kind of a callback to that little introduction about music being related to these various different cultures at the beginning of the movie. And it made me realize on the second viewing that the Native Americans were just ahead of the curve. And so I actually thought more highly of them, and versus like once Remick gets to the Juke and everyone's very superstitious and very against it. I appreciated that Native Americans in the movie had this feeling of like spirituality, I guess, right off the bat, because I'm pretty sure he blesses the KKK member's wife, saying like God be with you or whatever when she says she doesn't want the help. Like they offer that spiritual protection even when they're getting hit with it. Whereas at the Juke, there's like that skeptical, there's that like hard nose, that like hard like we have to protect our own, and we're very, very wary of who's coming in the door. Whereas the Native Americans go out of their way to do it. So I didn't get magical Negro vibes from them, or that kind of type, or like I guess magical like POC vibes. Maybe that should be like the new term that's used in the colloquial. But I don't know. What did you get that?
Well, because I've heard that complaint before. I mean, yeah, you've mentioned Stephen King. Like The Green Mile is a great example of the magical Negro thing from John Coffey. But yeah, no, I'll probably mention this YouTuber quite a few times, Cosmonaut Variety Hour. His name is Marcus Turner. He's this great YouTuber I've loved for years, and he's pointed that out on a watch of, I think it was the Twilight Breaking Dawn movies. He did like a a viewing with his partner at the time, and uh, Bella and Edward are in Brazil on their honeymoon, and Bella's pregnant, and some native Brazilian woman like touches her tummy when she figures out she's pregnant, and like knows that it's going to be like a demon baby or something.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcus is like, I hate this thing where like they do this in movies where natives just know things because they're native, so they're magical, and they like. So I get that, but I think the way they kind of circumvent that mystical otherness, like, oh, they get it, but we don't thing is with the character of Annie in Sinners, because she's like a hoodoo priestess or something, and she knows a lot of different kind of spiritual stuff. She's the expert on vampires when they realize that they're dealing with vampires. And it's like, I've seen this come up a lot in discussion of the movie. Like, they center her voice a lot. They trust a black woman to
Mm-hmm.
take charge of the situation. And that's really cool and really powerful.
Yeah. I was just thinking when you said this, and especially like the phrasing of the cosmonaut quickie, as you put it, or as Marcus put it, I don't think they just know things because they're Native Americans. I think they know he's a vampire because he got caught by them. And I think that's what Sinners does well for me, and I think that's why, more specifically, I didn't get that vibe from them.
Yeah. Because how they've treated like all the different types of people in this movie has been so respectful.
Right.
That there's, I've heard it come up that like there's not enough credit and representation of the history of Chinese immigrants in the South at that time. And we have like some pretty important Chinese characters in this. And even the main villain, the vampire Rennick being Irish, is like, yeah, that's a white person, but at that time that was a very like
it's an othered white person.
Yeah. And you get Rennick's motivation very clearly, which makes him a very compelling villain.
That's why I was going to say, the first time I watched it, I really loved to hate him. And the second time, I actually kind of felt for him.
Yeah.
I think, having paid attention. How would you phrase his motivation?
So I read this like wrong when I first saw it, because basically I thought that the whole vampirism theme in the movie was like a metaphor for organized crime. Because it's about this Irish guy he's another beaten down minority at the time. He turns to building a family to make their own way in a world that won't let them go straight.
A fellowship of love.
Yeah, that's what they call it. It's because we've seen from Delta Slim's story that his friend, when they made some money at a gig, he tried to just take it and go build a parish or something. He wanted to hop a train and go somewhere to build something, and he got lynched for it. Rennick and his coven of vampires, they represent like, creating basically a criminal family, a criminal underworld of people that have to make their own rules because the world won't let them play by the rules that have been established. They're still going to be persecuted even when they, quote unquote, do it the right way. And that reflects Smoke and Stack and their time in Chicago working for Al Capone. They come back with the money to open a legitimate business by and for their own people, but it's still tainted by the violence it took to get there. And it's cursed to be ruined by the KKK ambush planned for the next morning. But no, that is not what this is about at all. But you could see where I thought that at first, because it's very clear that from a couple things. I mean, Rennick wants what Sammy has because it connects him to people in a way that he can't actually feel. What's interesting is the way that Rennick turns all the vampires, and they all kind of become a hive mind, and it's very like cult like. So they all kind of have the same motivation, have the same feelings, and they want what Sammy has, his connection to the past and the future. And they want to feel that because they have felt their loss of humanity. And music is some kind of unspoken magic that can bring it back. That's really more of a metaphor for like culture vultures, you know, and it would be very easy for this to just be some white guy just basic privileged white guy, as opposed to an Irish person who comes from a similar oppressed background. Not as much, but similar. So it gives some nuance to it to show people just doing bad things to try to help themselves and maybe even believe that they are helpful to other people that they're ultimately hurting. I think it's all proven by the epilogue when you see Stack and Mary have lived on for 60 years as vampires and they're still empty.
Yep. Yeah, and they still miss his music.
Mm-hmm. But that's jumping around a lot.
Yeah, that's fine.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I didn't read it so deeply. I usually tend to engage myself with text, not looking for what it's symbolizing or what it's trying to comment on, whatever social things that are going on at the time, and more so just in general what it's trying to say. And I didn't think about the culture vultures kind of thing until I watched like a couple videos about it, which I do see that aspect. I do like, but I just saw it more, especially after that second time, that he could not be Rennick, could not be with the people he loved. And he just missed them. Like, just plain and simple, just talking in the movie terms, not necessarily making any commentary. But that was when I was like, ooh, I feel for this dude. And he's not othering Smokestack. He's not othering any of the other black characters, the Asian characters. He's not truly not othering anyone. Rather, he's doing the opposite by trying to include them just in this very warped way, like you were saying. And so that's why I really felt for him as a villain and thought he was compelling, just on the level of what the movie's talking about. Just on the textual level of what the movie is talking about, because you don't really see what is predominantly a black movie treat its white villain with such grace and humanity.
Because he's the white villain that deserves it, even though he is twisted and fucked up and evil, but has good motivation. The other white villains, the KKK, they're just hateful, and that's why it's so satisfying to see them get obliterated.
And so that's why this is, if I had any qualms with the movie, the KKK stuff is probably where it falls. And that's in respect to Coogler and how good he is. So earlier I said that he kind of it felt like he was like checking boxes to show that he was playing in the confines of the genre that his audience members are expecting and anticipating. So having the KKK come up and get gunned down at the end by Smoke.
Yes.
I did not need that at all. Because yes, it does feel good to see it. I'm not discounting that. But the thing is, we've seen it so many times before that the rest of this movie was so novel and so rich with something new to say that I didn't need Coogler's same commentary there in the way that I was getting something new with what he was saying with Rennick, in the way that I was getting something new with what you were saying regarding like the culture vulture stuff. Like those I thought were new takes on an old spin of things. This was more so just the thing of like, don't we love gunning down Nazis? And like, yeah, we sure do. It gets asses in the seat. I'm not discounting that. It's just like, you made such a good movie. I didn't need that to feel like you were already at 5 stars for me. You know, so it seems like you want to say something about that.
I do, because I think it further supports everything else. Yes, it's extremely satisfying and just like a way we love like Inglourious Basterds or something, or Django Unchained. But it's set up because it's part of the motivation that makes Rennick compelling to the survivors, because he warns them. He says like, you know, that guy you bought this place from is the Grand Dragon of the KKK, and they're planning to come here tomorrow morning when you're hungover and murder you all. So I got on the jump, and I have a way to save you from that. Like, if they kill you, you're dead. But if we bite you, you'll become vampires. You'll join our family, and we can go kill the Klansmen. So that adds a little motivation. But also something that I think is really important is that we get this hero moment for Smoke where he gets to just show his ex-soldier background, which has been hinted at, and it's hinted at before that he's got like basically a little armory in the back of his truck. That's all. That's all been set up, and now we get to see him in action at the end, and it gives him a logical way to die after surviving the vampire attack, and in dying gets to see the family he will reconnect with of Annie and their unborn kid, that the vampires never get because they're damned. They can't have that anymore. So we see him do something which is normally morally objectionable, which is killing a lot of people, but they're evil people. And even as he turns and like unloads on the Grand Dragon and is still able to see Annie and the baby and know that he's going to join them in the afterlife, he's not damned for this. He's a sinner, but that sin was useful. And it parallels to Sammy sticking with music when he's told that music is the sin that got him into this bad night. So I think it's a very, very fitting way for the character to go out and wrap up part of what the movie's saying.
I'm not discounting it. I'm saying from my personal preference, and yeah, I don't disagree with all of the things you're saying. I see how it reinforces everything. I think that more speaks to a little conversation we were having previously about like the 3-act, 4-act structure of it, because I did not see this as Smokestack's movie. I saw this as Sammy's movie, or Sammy's story, rather.
Yeah.
And I appreciated how the movie goes into different points of view to follow and see how they set up the Juke for that night, and to also just show like the relationships among all the characters and like do all the table setting, you know. I really thought that that extra scene kind of turned the movie into a 4-act movie rather than the typical 3-act. And I read a little bit of what you were saying in like calling Sammy and Smoke co-protagonists.
Yeah.
Right? That's how you're referring to them?
It is Sammy in the lead for sure, but
Yeah.
Smoke, I'd say more so than Stack, is more of a lead just for what the arc is and how much longer he is like that you can root for him as a driving force of the movie.
So this is where I get a little frustrated, I guess, on a structural level with the movie and the writing level for the movie. When you have a story and there are multiple protagonists, I typically think of something like a team movie. So, like X-Men, The Eternals, Guardians of the Galaxy. That's a better one. I don't know why I said Eternals
Let's just
first.
say Eternals.
I couldn't think of Guardians of the Galaxy.
I can't name the characters in Eternals.
Yeah, me neither. Even though I didn't hate that movie, but neither here nor there. So, okay, so let's actually use Guardians of the Galaxy, because I think that's a good comparison for it. So, in all 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I never felt like it was a 4-act movie, despite them all being the protagonists, right? It felt like their arc was clear, it was tight from start to finish, and we were good with it. I think what throws me off for Sinners is that I get the distinct feeling that Sammy is our protagonist, and then Smoke is our secondary one, and then yeah, like Stack is there, but he's kind of like tertiary, and he's the twin, you know. So you get it, like you kind of get what Coogler is going for, and so because of that, it doesn't feel like a traditional 3-act movie because Sammy's my protagonist going into it.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Kind of. Because even those ensemble movies like X-Men and Guardians do have a lead, like Wolverine or Peter Quill. There is one main person you follow, and it is Sammy in this. Absolutely. I mean, he's the first person we see.
Right.
And he's young. He has the chance really to see where he's gonna go with his life. Whereas Smoke and Stack, we're seeing how they're going to end. You know, that's a different kind of arc. But what I think structurally makes it all make sense is if you think of Act 1 as the day leading up to the party at the Juke. Right. Act 2 is everything at the Juke.
Right.
And Act 3 is the battle with the vampires and dawn breaking through Sammy leaving town.
And that's where I get that. That's where I fall off.
But that includes Smoke having the end of his arc at the same time as the end of Sammy's.
This is more me disagreeing as a writer, not as a movie watcher and viewer. And so it's because I don't buy Smoke as a protagonist that I'm supposed to care enough about that I'm watching when Sammy's not in the picture. Because my entryway to caring and investing about Smoke is through Sammy. See, Franklin is in disagreement with me.
Franklin's the angry commenter.
Right. We learn about Smokestack through Sammy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
You see what I mean? So we learn about them being their cousin, and they're bringing him on because he's going to bring the music. And we care about Sammy because he's the music player. We just end up caring about Smokestack because they have to put together the environment for Sammy, our protagonist, to do the thing they're bringing him in to do.
That's a fair point, but Smoke does also have his own setup from when he goes to see Annie for the first time. And it parallels the first scene and the last scene that they have together.
It does
really well.
That's actually where I feel like Coogler shoehorned in an extra arc. And I don't hate it because I enjoy the story, but it felt like he put a second arc in there that makes the movie run longer and feel less tight, despite being super tight. Again, I'm not hating on it. These are just the things where I'm thinking of, I watched this and I thought of The Batman by Matt Reeves, because in The Batman, he takes care of all the Riddler incels, and that feels like the end of the third act. Batman has become the savior. And he has gone from being fear to hope. And great, Gotham, we'll see it in Gotham. And how does Gotham react to a Batman who is hopeful and not fear-causing and fear-inducing, right? But then we get this whole thing with Catwoman tacked on at the end, which, in your line of thinking, from what we talked about before, she's like the co-protagonist.
Yeah.
Her arc is secondary to Batman's.
Right.
The same way Smoke's is secondary to Sammy's.
Yeah.
And so these overly long movies, and I say overly, relatively speaking, Oppenheimer was super long, but I could watch that 3 times a day, Yeah. But, and again, it felt good. It felt tight. It just didn't feel like a traditional movie. And so it's maybe fourth act is the wrong term I shouldn't be using, but it feels like something's happening in mainstream movies that are moving away from a traditional protagonist that undergoes an arc, and then essentially the secondary protagonist and the antagonist have the quote unquote B and C stories. I don't think that's the right term for it because it's not TV, but they're not as important.
It kind of is though, yeah.
Right? So now I'm starting to feel like these bigger movies are going towards having yes, this is our protagonist, but also there's this character clearly beloved by the writer and the director who gets this huge arc that is pretty integral to the movie. But having that focus on that character makes the movie feel that much longer, that it starts to push out at the seams of 3-act structure. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think it's interesting hearing how you think about the structure of a movie, especially to use the word fourth act when there is an epilogue.
Yeah.
Because to me, that seems like the obvious fourth, if we're going to call it a 4-act thing, there literally is one, because there's a weird mid-credit scene that goes on for 10 minutes, and that's not common.
Which is dope. That was a great choice.
But that does wrap it all back to Sammy, because Smoke has been dead by this point. I think really the main purpose that Smoke's end serves is to re-emphasize Sammy's, because at the same time that Smoke is killing the Klansmen, this is kind of his rebirth moment by his death, because the conflict itself of him fighting them that's not a climax. It's not that kind of fight.
Right.
It's just him coming to terms with his end and being able to still reunite with his family in the afterlife despite the evil he's done in his life. And to juxtapose that with Sammy unable being unable to let go of the broken guitar,
Mm.
I think shows that Sammy knows that there was good in all those sinners he just spent that night with.
Yeah.
And that guitar literally saved him because he smashed it over Rennick's head, and it had silver in it because it was a resonator guitar, and it got stuck in him, so it was like effective, which was such a cool touch. Because I remember
Very smart.
from the beginning when you see it intact, and I was like, oh, cool, resonator guitar. I haven't seen one of those in a while. And then it's silver. Like this movie's so tight. I love it. But,
yeah.
Everything about Smoke and Stack and their arcs supports Sammy's. It's a little jarring to see it going back and forth, and it's kind of taking a little bit longer, but it gives us seeing Smoke's end at the same time as Sammy's choice helps build up the tension of, should he give up music? Is his father right? You know, because when you just hear him say that it's because of his devil music that he got here and got in the situation, you might think he's right, especially because you open the movie with that.
Yeah.
But then you compare it to what's going on with Smoke, and that despite all the bad actions he's doing, he's still saved. He's still redeemed.
Yeah.
That shows that his connection, Sammy's connection to that world through music, which has given him so much, can save him too. And then it does, because he grows up to be Buddy Guy.
Yeah. Best cameo ever.
That was so good, because I'm watching it and I'm like, that's Buddy Guy. But weirdly, before I knew for sure that was Buddy Guy, I saw that was Kingfish playing next to him.
That's funny. That's great.
I was like, I know that big dude is Kingfish. And I was like, oh, wait, that is Buddy Guy.
Yeah.
Oh, which, fun fact, is an extra little that he goes back to Chicago to become a big blues player, because that's where Buddy Guy is from.
Right.
Or like where he got big. I'm like, just the perfect.
No, everything was smart.
Perfect casting. Like,
My sister and I saw the movie the first time at Nighthawk in Williamsburg, and I was sitting next to this dude who turned out to be a musician. But at that scene with Buddy Guy where he's playing on the stage, and it does that dumb, weird jump to the 90s, which was totally jarring just to see it. But again, like, I'm in, because it's Coogler doing Coogler. And the dude sitting there leans over to his wife, but loudly, still leaning over to his wife, because we know the movie's coming to an end. He goes, "Is that Buddy Guy?" And then a beat, and you see, like, it's quiet at first, or rather, there's no speech because they're just playing. And then a beat hits, and he goes, "That's fucking Buddy Guy." Like, really excited. So much so, my sister, like 2 seats from this dude, is dying laughing at this dude's realization of it. It was really, really good. The Chicago thing was like takes the cake, and also like Buddy Guy can act. Like his scene after where he's sitting there talking to Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld, like I was, dude, like I can sit here and listen to you talk all day, man. Like, also,
I love that this is such. I always think about this when old people are in movies and people point out that they're old.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I was like, how did Michael B. Jordan feel having to go up to Buddy Guy, sniff him, and say, "You ain't got long left, huh?"
I thought that too. I had the same reaction, especially wearing clothes from the 90s, whereas Buddy Guy still looks timeless in his suit.
Yeah.
Great movie. And it really makes me hope that people start trusting in people to do different IPs and different stories, and let Ryan Coogler do whatever he wants. It doesn't have to be Wakanda forever. Frankly, I'm kind of tired of anything Marvel, so.
Yeah, I haven't seen any, I think, since Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, you're not missing out.
Movies since then. I've heard Thunderbolts is pretty good, but if I'm going to spend money at the movies, it's going to be for something like this, not Marvel. I don't need that anymore. Yeah. Do you feel like there's anything that we missed about Sinners that we didn't get a chance to talk about? Because I think there's a lot of stuff endlessly.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that is very big online and is very like that music scene that everyone loves. Like we don't even.
Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly what we're missing. That's the best scene in the movie, bar none, and it's like one of the best scenes I've ever seen.
I was with people, and this made me sad. because I thought it was awesome both times. But I was with people who were like, it's a little cheesy, you know, having the DJ while like there's the person wearing the kimono, and I was like, did you not listen at the beginning? He's
Right.
connecting people to their cultural ancestors and their cultures across time.
And their
Like,
descendants.
right?
Like, that's so cool. It was the fact that it was all this like one continuous shot,
Yeah.
and it wasn't just black music either. It had some like African tribal stuff and
Yep.
future with like hip hop and rappers and DJs and stuff. But then like when you pass the Chinese couple, there's like ancient Chinese, or maybe not ancient, but like Chinese traditional dancing
Yeah.
there too. And I was like, this is a humanistic look at music and the power of like connecting through it, not just to like the influences that created like the music that you play now, but how you will inspire people in the future. And it's all without words. It's just him doing this one original song spanning through the whole like plotted perfectly. I can't even. My jaw was open watching it.
What really like ices the cake for me is that it's through the lens of black blues music.
Hmm.
And so I think that's why it reinforces any social or racial commentary that Coogler is making, because that comes back as a linchpin. Again, putting it in context of like Jordan Peele and Us, where he's like, this is a class movie, it's not a race movie. Like Coogler is saying, yeah, it's a race movie, but it's also a human movie, and
Right.
uses race as the entryway to talk about humanity, you know?
And blues is the perfect music to do that with because of how much it's influenced popular music ever since and how much it's built from before, which we're seeing there. And it's like the Jordan Peele thing of like when you're talking about class you kind of have to talk about race and vice versa. That proves it, that all of
Right,
this music can be tied before and after to the blues, which is black music.
right.
That's important, and it's you can't remove that. Like if you're diving into it, you're going to see both parts to that.
Yeah. Masterfully done. Everything about it. I could definitely watch it again.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up seeing it again. Although the first time I saw it, so we both saw it at Nighthawk for the first time,
Mhm.
and I ordered food that was really good, but like it was very distracting to eat because it was like cornbread and barbecue pork, I think, and like fried mac and cheese, all like on a skewer.
Okay.
And I'm trying to pull pieces off of this little wooden stick and dip it in the sauce while I'm watching like one of the best movies I've seen in years and trying to
Yeah.
take in the cinematography and the symbolism and everything. And I'm just like this. Maybe I should have just gotten like a sandwich or stuck to the popcorn or something. But I planned on having dinner there. That's the thing about Nighthawk. It's such a great experience, but like it can be a little distracting.
100%.
Like it was fine when I saw No Way Home there because
Yep.
I'm like, oh no, I missed the plot. Like okay, but Sinners a little bit. I'm like, oh no.
It's hard. You got to pick your battles when you go there. I always end up getting the chicken sandwich, and my sister and I and my partner, we always split tater tots because their
Mhm.
tater tots slap. Oftentimes, my partner and I get the Nighthawk popcorn mixed with caramel popcorn, which is like,
Oh, we did just the Nighthawk popcorn this time, and it was really good.
yeah, no, they're both delicious. But like, I learned that as like a secret menu thing when I was working there. I was like, what if I put this together? What's it gonna taste like? And I was like, oh my god, like
Oh,
new
I'm doing that
flavor.
next time.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Also, how have I not mentioned Haley Steinfeld like at all in this? I
I
love
feel
her.
so bad for her for the flack that she's getting.
What flack?
Well, because she's white passing.
Yeah, but she's like a quarter Filipina.
Right. Yeah, I know. But I mean, like,
This isn't like Emma Stone playing a half Chinese person in Aloha that even she makes fun of.
that's a reference I don't even get for a movie I've never seen. I gotta watch that now.
It's a Cameron Crowe movie with Bradley Cooper and a couple other people I can't remember. It was really bad apparently, and for some reason, Emma Stone's character in it is half Chinese, and like no,
That's weird.
Emma
That's really
Stone is
weird.
all white. So even if you didn't know Haley Steinfeld is like mixed, you could kind of see it,
Right.
So like I think it was a good choice, and she's a damn good actor.
Yeah, I loved her in it. I can truly watch her in everything. She's the reason I still watch Marvel movies when I know that she's going to show up in it. I'm like, all right, good
You know
actress.
what?
I'm down.
It's funny when so she's one of my like celebrity crushes, and it's funny when you see someone your age at a young age and you develop a crush on them and then
Yeah.
go back to that movie. So
Hmm.
because I first saw her in True Grit, which was like 2010, I think.
Oh, I got to watch that. I know it's a good one.
Really good. I saw the original, it's okay, but the remake is great. But I remember from then being like, she's really cute. And we were both like 14, 15, something like that at that
Hmm.
time. But then if you go back to that movie and you like have those feelings again of remembering that, it's like, oh no, I think a child is cute. But I'm like, but
That's
that's past me. I'm just remembering past me, I swear.
right. You grew at the same time of her. I think it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
My entryway to her was Bumblebee.
That was your first Haley Steinfeld movie?
It was, and honestly, what a great one because John Cena as Army villain was awesome. But on top of that, I was like, wow, this is a Transformers movie that cares about characters. Sign me up. Like,
You know, I heard it was good, but you just reminded me of probably the other most important thing that we haven't discussed yet about Sinners.
mhm.
I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Miles Caton,
I don't know how to pronounce his name either, but it's Sammy, the guy who plays
the
Sammy.
kid who plays Sammy, or
Yeah,
guy. I don't actually know how old he is.
he's young.
This is his first movie.
Sure is.
Like when it said introducing
Yep.
Miles Caton, he was born in 2005. He is 20 years old.
Yeah. He's a kid.
Like I'm blown away.
Speaks more to how awesome Ryan Coogler is putting a newbie like that into his
Mhm.
huge motion picture where Michael B. Jordan plays twins, which could have easily been the main characters.
Pretty effortlessly too.
Yeah.
Like you forget a lot of the time that they're the same guy. Like there were times I was looking for it that I was just like, oh, I can see that he doesn't fully know what he's interacting with here, haha. But like that's natural. Like
My partner had those things when she was watching it, and she was like, the CGI is pretty bad. This, like, or like calling it out in whatever moments. And after the movie, she made a similar comment again. And my sister was like, actually, I thought it was pretty good. I was like, honestly, yeah, it was pretty good. Like, you can't even front. Like, there
Yeah.
are some scenes where clearly he's talking to someone else or something else. Yeah, that's fine. You can only do so much. But, like, there's moments where Stack throws Smoke a knife.
oh my god, yeah.
And then he throws it back, and it's like, this is Coogler straight up being like, hey, I'm making you believe that one man is two men. And you're like, yeah, you are. You are making me believe that. Because it's not so much Smoke and Stack. I'm sorry. It's not so much Michael B. Jordan acting as two people, so much as it is Coogler's amazing editing to make it look like he's two people. And I think that's where the magic hits for me.
It certainly helps that Michael B. Jordan gave each of them their own personality.
Yeah.
And like you can feel who it is even when the hats are off.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, which that's hard to do for people that I know are twins in real life who are two separate individuals.
I would say the only bad CG I really noticed in the movie was that snake.
At the beginning?
Yeah.
After when it was
one they
killed,
kill
right?
when they find the truck, yeah.
Yeah, I thought the snake on the truck was fine, but when it was like gurgling on the ground, I was like, that's a video game right there. But I didn't even care.
It reminded me of this trailer I saw for a movie called, I think it was called A Dog's Journey.
I remember
Does
that.
this
Yeah.
sound familiar to? Yeah, there's a scene because it's all about like a dog that gets like it's got to find its way home or whatever, and it's like in the mountains, and like a mountain lion gets up and like roars at it, and it's like the most CG looking thing I've seen this century.
Ridiculous.
I'm just like this. They put this in a real movie. So no, but the snake was not that bad. But it was just funny that like when I'm watching the credits later and seeing no animals were harmed in the making of this movie, I was like, you don't say.
Right? Yeah, I know that.
Also, another funny thing that was in the credits. Did you see the musicians that worked on the music in the movie?
No.
So I was looking through. I was seeing it with Zach. So Zach and our partners all went together. And Zach is the guitarist from Strange Sabers. We go way back. And yeah, we're watching the credits and we're seeing that there's Buddy Guy, there's Kingfish. And then on the drums section, we both were just like, Lars Ulrich.
Stop, really?
Yeah. I was like, but the drums were good.
I can't believe. Oh, I'm not going to watch it a third time just to see his face for like a hot second.
No, he's not like he worked on it in the studio, like the music.
Oh.
He wasn't playing in Buddy Guy Sammy's band.
I would argue that's even weirder than a Lars Ulrich cameo in Buddy Guy's band in the 1990s.
He wanted to get his fingerprints on it so he could copyright strike the movie.
Yeah, I was going to download the soundtrack off Napster when we got off this, but guess I can't.
I don't know. What else are we missing? Because, I mean, there's so much to this movie.
I felt inspired by this movie. I didn't write about this, but because I feel like I've exhausted everything I've like had to say on like a critical lens about it.
Mm-hmm.
Both times I saw this, I went home and I was like, let me start writing a short story. Like it made
Really?
me want, it made me want to be artistic. It made me want to be creative, which I don't get a lot from any media nowadays. Either it's just a really, really good story, really, really good song. I like how it sounds. I like how it looks. And this movie, both times, I was like, damn, I want to emulate how this made me feel in some way. And not necessarily to just be like, I'm scaring you or I'm saying this thing that I think is interesting about culture and society, but just rather like, I just want to write a story. I want to tell a damn good story the way that Coogler tells a damn good story. And the way that he's like kind of riffing on Stephen King telling a damn good story, and Mike Flanagan, which I didn't really talk about, but he's just a better visual version of Stephen King, and how Christopher Nolan just tells a damn good story. Like that's why this felt like genreless to me, despite employing jump scares, despite having a musical segment, despite having romance and drama and comedy. You called it a vampire period piece. I think that's the best way to put it as a genre.
Yeah, if you had to label it, yeah.
Yeah, you can't call it like I've had students that were like, "Oh, I want to see Sinners." I heard it's a horror movie. And I'm like, it's not a horror movie. And then another kid who saw it is, well, it is kind of scary. And I was like, yeah, but horror movies are also kind of funny. And you're not. Are you really going to Sinners to get scared? Like, I don't think so. You might get scared, but I think after those jump scares, I don't think I was scared at any moment. I definitely laughed more than I was scared in the movie, or I felt invested more than I was scared.
Okay, so you said something really interesting, and to like get a little gushy for a second, like some of my favorite things, like the movie Sing Street that I've brought up a bunch of times, like they give me that same feeling of celebrating creativity and inspire you to do the same because the characters in it love it so much. And that's what Sammy does, that even when faced with the choice and a good reason to give up on it, he can't. And he's rewarded for it in the end. He gets to live a long, happy, good life. I'm really proud of what we're doing here on Filler because you came to me and said, I want to do a podcast where we celebrate art, the things that like fill us up, fill our cups creatively and inspire us, because there is so much negativity out there. And it would be very easy for us to just like pick things apart and do the CinemaSins thing, because hating on content is so easy and so clickable, but it's very hard to prop something up. And yeah, we have fun shitting on Blink-182 and Springsteen when things aren't hitting, but it's coming from a place of love because we're either disappointed knowing they could do better, or it gives us kind of an enjoyment to analyze or compare to things we know they've done better.
Mm-hmm.
So it just feels really good to get on here and just both be like, we love this movie. Because the last time we talked about a movie this long, I loved it and you didn't.
Oh yeah, 500 Days of Summer. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool to just be like, we both like this. We can analyze things that may or may not have worked for us, or we might not have even fully understood it, and we might not have even been the target audience, but it overall gave us something. And I'm happy that we're here honoring it. So thanks publicly for inviting me to be on this.
I think that's a perfect way to cap our conversation on it too. Damn good movie that makes you want to be creative, which That's why we're here, talking about stuff that makes us want to be creative. To segue into our shorter than usual final segment before they stop hearing our voices, or at least until they stop hearing your voice, and I'll come back for our usual send off and spiel.
Mm-hmm.
We will have our recommendations for a later episode because we listed a few that we were going to share, but we're recording this just before Mother's Day, and this will come out just the Monday after Mother's Day. So we asked our moms to offer some recommendations to give them motherly love, because we wouldn't be here without them, and we wouldn't be able to celebrate media without them. At least I can say my mom inspired a ton of my love of movies and music and reading when I was a kid and as I grew up. So I asked you, Steve, to ask your mom to get a recommendation. Was she able to do that? Was she happy to do that?
She hasn't done it yet. So
Okay.
I'm going to get it from her. So by the time you're hearing this, we will put it in right here after I'm done talking. But I am very curious what she's going to pick. And she said she's got to think about it because, like you said, like our parents are kind of our first introductions to a lot of the things we love. And I've bonded with both my parents over Springsteen. That was a big thing for us and still is to this day. If I had to guess, she's either going to pick a show that she's watching right now with her boyfriend on Apple TV Plus, because they watch that a lot, or maybe a book by James Patterson, which, I know, but the way she talks about a couple in particular that have really stayed with her, I think it's clearly like really touched her. So I think that could be something she would talk about. Or I think her favorite movie is A Few Good Men.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that. I am really curious now what it's going to end up being and if I got any of it.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That's funny that her favorite movie is A Few Good Men. My mom loves A Few Good Men. And now sitting here, I'm thinking like maybe that really is a mom core movie, because it's like it's young but growing Tom Cruise. It's Jack Nicholson like being Jack Nicholson and hating him. Demi Moore being awesome. That's a good movie.
Kevin Bacon doing like an understated but cool and solid performance.
I forgot about Kevin Bacon. I really like him. I'm glad your mom was into the idea, because I approached my mom and I was like, hey, Steve and I are doing this for filler. Can I just get your recommendation? I'll show you how to do a voice memo and I'll even take it for you. And she's like, oh, yeah, can you write it for me? And I was like, no, I can't write it for you. And so I gave her an example of one. I was like, Mom, you really like ER? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, so you could be like, she can't use this now because I'm using it as the example. This is what I say with my students. If I give the example, you don't get to use it.
Right.
And I was like, you really like ER. You can say, you know what, I really love ER just because it's full of drama and tension and you love the characters. And it makes me think of my own mom, because there was Djokovic. I forget his first name on it. But me and my mom, my grandma, would call him the handsome doctor. And it's just a sweet memory to be like, what's the handsome doctor getting into this week, when they were still watching it. She goes,
was that George Clooney's character?
No, that was like George Clooney's rival at some parts.
Oh.
Yeah, because George Clooney, obviously, like, handsome dude off the bat. It was just another dude who's like way more problematic on the show, but compelling. But I was like, I gave her this as an example, and she goes, that's a really good example. Yeah, I really do like ER. And I was like, come on. Like, I've hooked you up with every streaming service under the sun. You watch Tubi more than any human I know. You definitely have a gem that you can give me. And she's like, all right. So I'm also curious, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what it is, because I come home and she's on her iPad watching something. And I'm like, what's on today? And she goes, it's this weird show that like I was watching on TCM the other night and I fell asleep. And then I was like, let me see if it's streaming. And it's on Tubi. So
I want to see her pull like a weird Tubi thing, like Zombievers or
amazing.
or Raptor Jesus, like something like that.
She'll do that, or like go off the cuff and like I won't guess it at all. And she'll be like, yeah, have you heard of this young fellow 50 Cent? He's got an album. Like I don't know what she's gonna say. She'll definitely throw us for a loop. Thank you from us for listening to our Sinners episode. Happy Mother's Day to all who are celebrating. And here are some recommendations from our moms. We'll see you next time with the next episode in our Bruce series.
Let's do it.
Hi, I'm Fran, Joe's mom. I like to watch videos of people shopping at Goodwill or thrift stores. It makes me happy to see items on the shelves that my parents had when I was growing up.
Hi, I'm Renee, Steve's mom. I'd like to share about the TV show Survivor, as it is very meaningful to me. Not just the show itself, but the wonderful memories I have from watching it with Steve from the very first season, and he was only 5 years old. Being one of the first reality shows, we didn't know what to expect. We soon found out it was more than surviving the elements and lack of food on a so-called deserted island. It turned out to be quite a social experiment. However, what truly amazed me was Steve's reaction to the show. He quickly memorized all the cast members' names and the tribes to which they belonged. And if I thought that was something, he really blew me away when he started understanding and expressing to me different strategies and alliances that were being made. He followed all the connections in his mind, anticipating everyone's next move. I had more fun watching Steve's mind at work than I did watching the show. We made it our weekly routine to watch Survivor right up until he went off to college. The show continually sparked deeper conversations about strategy, trust, human nature, and how different people navigate difficult situations. So, if you haven't watched the tribe members attempt to outwit, outplay, and outlast the rest, give it a shot. But don't watch it alone. I guarantee by watching it with someone, you'll get much more out of it than what you might expect.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Filler. If you like what you heard, please rate and review this episode to help others find it. For more recommendations and explorations of media we love, go to afterschoolspecial.xyz. Follow Filler on Blue Sky and email us at fillerpod@gmail.com. See you next time.